Do you know what it feels like to be beaten with your own shoes? Not just any shoes, but those cruel, sharp-heeled ones you once wore when your legs could carry you with pride? I remember the sting. I remember her face, my daughter-in-law, when she raised that shoe high and brought it down across my back. Again and again, until my skin broke and bled. And then she rubbed salt into the wounds. Real salt. From the kitchen. Her laughter still echoes in my ears. My name is Eleanor Grace Morgan. I'm 73 years old. Born in Kansas, raised with faith and dignity, I once thought growing old meant peace. That after decades of marriage, raising children, burying loved ones, working through arthritis and loneliness, I'd finally be surrounded by warmth and respect. I was wrong. They took my husband last year. The cancer devoured him like a curse. My only son, Michael, brought me into his home after the funeral. I was grieving, quiet, numb. I thought I'd be safe with him. I thought blood still meant something. But his wife, Vanessa, well, she saw me as something else. A burden, a nuisance, an old sack of bones that dared to exist in her house. It started with cold shoulders. Then came the harsh words. Then the food, stale or forgotten entirely. Then, the shoes. I remember the day my hip gave out while I tried to sweep their kitchen. The floor was slick. I fell hard. She stood there, arms crossed, watching me writhe. "You should have died with your husband," she hissed. That night, she pressed rock salt into my skinned elbows like it was seasoning for meat. My screams were muffled by the walls, by the silence of my coward son who watched with shame in his eyes, but said nothing. My Michael, my baby, did nothing. That was just one night. There were others. I've slept in closets, eaten scraps, bathed with cold water and tears. Every bruise, every scar, they carved into me like they were trying to erase my past, my worth, my very existence. I tried to tell someone once. I whispered to a neighbor's nurse when she came by. She smiled politely, but never came back. I'm not telling you this for pity. No, I'm telling you this because I know I'm not alone. Some of you watching have mothers, grandmothers. Some of you are those women. And you've been told to stay quiet, to be grateful, to not cause problems. But I'm here to tell you something. Silence is not mercy. Silence is a grave. For a long time, I waited for a miracle. But miracles don't come gift-wrapped. Sometimes they arrive like fire, destruction before rebirth. And mine came when I found the envelope. The one they thought I'd never see. A bank notice, addressed to me, but opened by Vanessa. My name was still on the deed of my late husband's land. 40 acres. Oil-rich. She tried to forge my signature to sell it. That's when I knew I wasn't worthless. I was valuable, and that terrified her. You want to know what happened next? Keep watching. I'll tell you every detail. Because I'm done hiding. I'm done bleeding. And I'm done forgiving. But before we go any further, if you've ever seen someone treat their mother or grandmother with cruelty, or if you've experienced anything like this, tell me in the comments. Where are you from? What have you seen? And more importantly, what did you survive? Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Whispers and Wills. This story is just beginning. And what I'm about to do, well, let's just say some people will wish they'd never touched me. They thought I was nothing but a relic. A week-old woman who'd lost her husband, her health, her voice. But what they forgot was this: I raised a family through poverty. I walked through winter storms to clean homes that weren't mine just to put food on the table. I bled during childbirth without screaming. And I buried a son before I turned 40. I survived all of that. And I remembered. I remembered where Gerald kept hidden things. Our little secrets. The night after I found the bank envelope, I waited until they were asleep. Vanessa snored like a dragon, her breath reeking of wine and rotting pride. Michael's silence had become a constant hum in the house, like an appliance always on but never working. I crept down into the basement, my bones aching, each step a battle cry inside my body. There was a loose panel behind the furnace. Gerald showed it to me once, back in 1987. In case you ever need to disappear or make someone else disappear, he joked. I remember laughing then. I wasn't laughing now. Behind that panel was an old, dust-covered lockbox. And inside it? Every title deed, every investment receipt, and most importantly, the original oil lease, signed by both of us. Not just in ink, but notarized. My name held equal weight to his. You see, they thought I didn't matter. But I was the co-owner of everything they were trying to steal. For weeks, I said nothing. I played the role of the quiet grandmother. Let them toss me crumbs. Let Vanessa use me as a footstool while she painted her cracked toenails and whispered poison into Michael's ears. But I began to document everything. Each bruise, each insult, every missed meal. I took photos with an old flip phone I'd hidden in a flower vase. I recorded her once, her cursing, slapping me across the cheek for folding the laundry too slow. I uploaded it all to a secret email, one I made in a library 6 months ago during one of the rare times they let me out of the house. Oh yes, I planned it. Quietly, carefully. Then one morning, I pretended to collapse. I fell in the kitchen. Let my forehead hit the edge of the counter. Blood. Real. Sticky. Honest blood. Vanessa screamed, but not out of concern. You old witch. You're getting blood on my tiles. Michael didn't even come downstairs. She kicked me. I remember the crunch. My rib. Still sore to this day. Then she dragged me to the garage like a sack of garbage. I stayed limp. She left me there. No food. No water. Just the dark, the cement, and the smell of gasoline. That was the last time she laid hands on me. Because when I was sure she was asleep again, I crawled out. Broken, sure. But alive. I called the lawyer's number written on the back of the oil lease. His name was Frank Colton, old friend of Gerald's. He thought I was dead. Vanessa had told him I passed months ago. No, Frank, I said into the phone. I'm very much alive. And I need your help. What followed was quiet, methodical revenge. The kind of revenge no one sees coming because they assume you're too weak to orchestrate it. I signed nothing. I agreed to nothing. And I transferred everything into a trust, in my name only. Frank helped me contact the bank. I froze every pending transaction. That land, that oil money, gone from Vanessa's reach. Then I waited. I cooked them dinner that night. Roast chicken. Potatoes. Just like old times. Vanessa laughed when she saw me. Surprised you didn't choke on your own spit down there. I smiled. Not tonight, dear. You'll be the one choking soon enough. She didn't understand. Not yet. But she would. Because the life she built on my pain was starting to rot. And the woman she thought was buried was just beginning to rise. The next morning, Vanessa woke up to chaos. It began with a phone call. I sat at the kitchen table, cradling a chipped teacup between fingers still bruised from last week's lesson she gave me about silence. She stomped in like a queen surveying her broken kingdom. She picked up the phone. This is Mrs. Morgan. Her eyes twitched. No, that can't be right. Pause. What do you mean the sale's been reversed? Longer pause. She turned slowly toward me, eyes narrowed, jaw tightening. I'll call you back, she snapped. She stood frozen for a second, staring at me like I'd sprouted horns. What did you do? She hissed, walking toward me, one heel tapping harder than the other, the way a predator circles its prey. I looked up slowly. I canceled your theft. She lunged. I flinched, but I didn't break. This time, I wasn't afraid. Because the camera was rolling. Tucked beneath the fruit bowl, angled perfectly at her shadow looming over me. You wrinkled, ungrateful cow, she seethed, grabbing the cup from my hand and smashing it against the wall. You think you're smart? You think you can outplay me? She didn't notice my fingers resting calmly on the cane beside me. Not for walking. I'd outgrown that lie. It was solid oak, with a brass head shaped like an eagle, my late husband's retirement gift. Heavy, sharp, waiting. Michael walked in just as she raised her hand again. But for once, he didn't look through me. He looked at me. At the wall. At the shattered ceramic. Then, at her. What's going on? Vanessa spun toward him, already in tears. Your mother's sabotaging everything. She's lying. She's turning you against me. She owns the land, I interrupted. She's a liar. I reached into my cardigan pocket and slid the folded deed across the table toward him. Michael didn't pick it up right away. His eyes darted between us, between the woman who bore him and the one who bore down on me like a vulture for the past year. Vanessa tried to snatch it, but I put my cane across the paper. He looked at her hand, then at mine. Hers trembled. Mine didn't. For the first time in a long while, my son looked like a boy again. A boy who'd once run to me with scraped knees. A boy who used to cry when I left him with babysitters. A boy who used to call me Mama and mean it. Is this true? He asked her softly. She said nothing. He turned to me, whispering, Why didn't you tell me? I did, I replied, voice low. With every bruise. Every limp. Every night you chose to close your door. He didn't answer. Later that evening, he left. Took his keys and drove off to God knows where. Vanessa thought she'd won again. She told me he just needed time. But she didn't know what I had done earlier that day. She didn't know I'd already spoken with a local women's rights advocate, a woman who specialized in elder abuse. I told her everything, and she believed me. Not because I cried, but because I documented. I gave her names, dates, photos, video. The woman, Ms. Laramie, promised to act fast. I'll start with the financial exploitation, she said. Then we go for physical abuse. That night, I locked my bedroom door. Not out of fear, but to watch from a distance. I wanted to see it happen. I wanted to see what cracks in a crown looked like. At exactly 11:37 p.m., the doorbell rang. Hard. 5 knocks. Vanessa, groggy and irritable, marched to answer it in her silk robe. There stood 2 officers. And behind them, Ms. Laramie. They had paperwork. Vanessa had no warning. This is about a misunderstanding, she stammered. No, ma'am, the officer replied. This is about a felony. I stood at the top of the stairs, gripping my cane, watching her world splinter. You can't do this, she barked, thrashing as they cuffed her. She's senile. She's lying. She's not lying, said the officer, holding up a phone. We have audio. And video. Ma'am, you need to calm down. They dragged her out into the cold night, barefoot, mascara smeared, screaming obscenities that bounced off the brick walls like curses. And just like that, the woman who once shoved salt into my wounds was shoved into the back of a police car. But don't get too comfortable. This wasn't the end. This was foreplay. Because while Vanessa's arrest made headlines, it was what happened afterward that truly turned the tables. You see, revenge doesn't always wear chains. Sometimes it wears pearls. After Vanessa's arrest, the house was quiet for the first time in months. Not peace, no. This silence wasn't soft. It was thick. Accusing. The kind of silence that makes you feel every breath like a sin. Michael didn't come home that night. I stayed in the armchair near the window, watching headlights pass, waiting for the sound of keys in the door. But when morning came, it was only me and the ghosts of 1,000 unspoken words. The officer had left a copy of the report on the table. I reread it a dozen times. Words like elder abuse, financial exploitation, evidence confirmed. There it was. On paper. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining it. The truth finally had teeth. By noon, the neighborhood was buzzing. I saw Mrs. Delgado across the street staring from behind her blinds. She'd always smiled at me during her walks, but never once asked why I had bruises in the summer or limped in the fall. They all saw. None of them spoke. That's the curse of growing old in America. You disappear, even while standing right in front of them. But now I was visible again. And they didn't know what to do with that. Around 4 p.m., Michael walked through the front door like he was entering a funeral. He didn't look at me, just went straight to the fridge, opened it, closed it again without taking anything. Then he sat at the table and stared into the void. "She's gone," he muttered. "I know," I said. "I didn't think it would escalate like this. You thought it would just keep happening forever." He didn't argue. That was something. He finally looked up. "Do you want me to leave too?" I studied him for a long moment. His face looked older, heavier. Not from age, but from shame. "You were my son," I said, "before you were her husband. You forgot that." He nodded, but the shame didn't move from his face. "I didn't hit you," he said quietly, like that absolved him. "No," I said. "You just watched." He didn't cry. I don't think he could. But I could feel the weight building in him. A slow crush. The kind of grief men like him aren't allowed to express, so it calcifies inside. The next few days passed like smoke. Vanessa was released on bail, paid by her brother, some rat-faced real estate agent I hadn't seen in years. She didn't come back to the house. Smart. She knew better. But what she did instead, that was her real talent. Lies. She told the media I had dementia, that I was confused, that I fabricated everything because I was jealous of her marriage. She even showed a photo of us smiling once, me and her at a Thanksgiving dinner 5 years ago, before Gerald died. "See? We were close," she told the camera. "She's just sick now." Sick. I'd never been so clear in my life. I wanted to bury her in truth. But not just her. Because the truth was, Vanessa didn't act alone. I found Michael's name on some of the paperwork, loan applications, credit card statements, forged medical documents that labeled me as mentally declining. She had his help. Or at least, his signature. When I showed it to him, he looked like a boy caught cheating on a test. "She said it was just to streamline the accounts," he whispered. "I didn't read everything." "You never did," I said. I didn't scream. I didn't break plates. I just stood there, a 73-year-old woman in a house built with betrayal, and said, "You have 48 hours to leave. This house is mine." He tried to argue. I pointed to the cane, not in threat, in reminder. He packed his things in 2 trash bags. No suitcase. No goodbye. Just silence. Again. I stood on the porch and watched him walk down the driveway like a man stepping off a cliff. That night, I sat on the living room floor and cried, not because I was sad, but because I was free. I cried until the salt ran out of me, until there were no more wounds to rub it into. And just when I thought I'd done all the crying I ever could, I heard a knock at the door. Slow, soft, repetitive. I stood up, my knees stiff but willing. I opened the door, and there, on the porch, was a girl, maybe 17, shivering, holding a small bag, a bruised lip, wide, terrified eyes. "Are you Eleanor?" she asked, voice trembling. "Yes. My grandmother told me about you. Said you helped put your abuser in jail." I nodded. She swallowed hard. "Can I stay here? Just for tonight?" And that's when I realized I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was a warning. I was a refuge. And maybe I was a beginning. The girl's name was Layla. 17 years old, with wrists like twigs and eyes that had seen far too much cruelty for someone barely old enough to vote. She sat on my old couch, clutching a chipped mug of cocoa I made with trembling hands. It wasn't just the bruises on her jaw or the slight limp in her left leg. It was the way she flinched every time I raised my voice above a whisper. I recognized that. It was the same way I used to recoil whenever Vanessa stomped down the hallway in those godforsaken heels. Her abuser was her stepmother. Beat her with a curtain rod, according to Layla. Left her outside in the snow once, barefoot, as punishment for sassing back. And like me, she had someone who looked away. Her father. She said, "He doesn't hit me. He just doesn't stop her." I didn't say much. I just sat beside her, laid a quilt across her knees, and in silence, I made a decision that would ripple through the bones of everyone who'd ever hurt me. She stayed the night. One night turned into three. Three turned into a week. I called a woman I met through Ms. Laramie, someone who ran a safe home for girls like Layla. I could have sent her there right away, but I didn't. Not yet. I needed her to see something first. It was time someone heard my whole story. So I sat her down at the table where I'd once been slapped, starved, and ignored, and I told her everything. Not the short version. Not the "oh, it was hard, but I survived" lie. The real version. I told her about the night Vanessa found the old wedding photo of me and Gerald and set it on fire while I begged her to stop. About how she once shoved a lit cigarette against the back of my hand and told me to feel what it's like to be worthless. About the time I tried to call 911 and she yanked the phone cord out of the wall, then told the neighbors I'd wandered into traffic because of my dementia. Layla didn't cry while I talked. She just listened. Then she said something I will never forget. "You're not just a survivor," she said. "You're a threat. That's why she hated you." I felt something shift in me when she said it. Like someone had finally found the right name for the part of me I had to keep buried. I wasn't just enduring. I was dangerous. And I was done being silent. That week, I walked into the local church. Yes, the same one that had ignored my bruises all those Sundays. I walked straight to the pulpit during an open prayer session and told the entire congregation what Vanessa had done. Names, dates, details. People gasped. Some left. One woman cried. And then I looked straight at Pastor Jim, the man who once told me, "Vanessa's just stressed, Eleanor. Try to be patient." I looked him right in the eye and said, "You failed me. And there are others." Then I handed out pamphlets, resources, phone numbers, told them I'd open my doors to any woman or girl with nowhere to go. I told them to call me Ms. Eleanor. Not sweetie, not hun, not granny, Ms. Eleanor. By the end of the week, I had 3 more girls staying in my home. And for the first time in decades, I had a purpose that wasn't survival. But you see, power has a scent. And like flies to rotting meat, the ones who once held the leash don't like seeing you stand tall. On the 10th day, Vanessa returned. Not to the house. No, she wasn't that stupid. She came to the library where I volunteered on Saturdays, stormed in like she still wore a crown. Everyone froze when they saw her, still dressed like she was someone important. She pulled off her sunglasses and threw them onto the counter beside the children's books display. "You think this is over?" she hissed. I smiled, calmly checking out a book for an old woman behind her. "Do you need help finding the large print section? Because clearly you didn't see the restraining order." She slammed her hand down. "I will ruin you." I leaned in slowly, so only she could hear. "You already tried." But I turned it into a weapon. Then I walked out. I don't know what happened inside her that moment, but I do know this. That night, I got an email from a lawyer Vanessa hired. She was suing me. Defamation. Property fraud. Mental distress. Imagine the woman who rubbed salt into my bleeding back trying to claim she was the victim. I smiled. She had no idea that I had already mailed a package to every news station in the state. Videos, bank records, medical reports, police interviews. A digital grave for her reputation. She wanted to go to court? So be it. She'd get her wish. And she'd leave that courtroom without her name, her wealth, or her mask. And this time, I wouldn't leave bleeding. The courtroom smelled like cheap paper and old perfume. The walls were beige, like everything sacred had been drained from them. No gold. No glory. Just fluorescent lights and faces that didn't blink fast enough. I sat on the plaintiff's bench, my spine straight, my hands folded. No trembling. No cane today. I didn't need it. My strength walked in ahead of me. Vanessa entered like she was stepping into a fashion show. Sleek black dress, oversized sunglasses, and a face powdered into porcelain. But no makeup could hide the tension in her jaw, or the way her eyes scanned the room for sympathy and found none. Her lawyer, a young man with a tie too tight, flipped through a stack of papers like he was about to deliver the sermon of his career. The judge, a stone-faced woman in her 50s, adjusted her glasses and said, "Ms. Morgan, you may proceed with your claims." Vanessa's lawyer stood, oozing false charm. "Your Honor, my client is a victim of false accusations, mental harassment, and public defamation. The defendant, Eleanor Morgan, has made baseless, emotionally charged allegations that have ruined my client's career, reputation, and mental well-being." He smiled like a toothpaste commercial. I didn't blink. "She has paraded herself in the media, spreading lies, objection," my attorney, Ms. Laramie, said smoothly. "We've provided video evidence, dated reports from physicians, and signed documents proving the abuse." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Noted. Continue." Vanessa's lawyer kept babbling, but the room had already started shifting. Because the truth wasn't in the script he rehearsed, it was in the faces. People watched me. Reporters. Bystanders. A jury of 12 whose average age was closer to mine than hers. Women with graying hair. Men who had mothers. They weren't staring at an old lady crying wolf. They were staring at a woman who had clawed her way out of silence with blood still under her fingernails. And then, they played the videos. First, the one from the kitchen, Vanessa screaming, grabbing the teacup from my hand and smashing it. "You wrinkled, ungrateful cow," her voice echoed through the court like a whip. People gasped. Next, photos of my bruises. The heel-shaped welt on my shoulder. The cigarette burn on my palm. The raw skin from where she'd once yanked out clumps of my hair for talking back. The silence in that courtroom was louder than thunder. Vanessa's face turned to stone. Her lawyer whispered something, but she shoved his hand away. Then came the documents. Forgery. Fraud. My own son's signature on the papers that tried to label me incompetent. They brought in a handwriting expert. He testified it was real. Vanessa's defense crumbled like dried leaves. But the final blow wasn't a file. It wasn't a photo. It was Layla. She walked up to the witness stand like a storm in boots too big for her. Shaking but steady. The same girl who once flinched when I reached for a teacup now stood before a judge to speak for me. "She saved me," Layla said. "I was going to kill myself before I met her." Murmurs spread like wildfire. She didn't just survive. She gave other girls like me somewhere safe to go. Vanessa tried to object. The judge shut her down. "She gave me the strength to testify," Layla added, her voice cracking. "Because someone like her should never be punished for speaking truth." When it was over, the judge leaned forward, hands clasped. "In all my years, I've seen abusers walk free because their victims were too old, too tired, or too scared to speak. But not today." Her gavel came down like the judge's gavel came down like thunder. "Case dismissed with prejudice. Counterclaims by the defendant, Ms. Eleanor Morgan, will proceed to civil review for damages. Ms. Vanessa Griffin is hereby referred to the District Attorney's Office for perjury, elder abuse, and financial fraud." The sound of that gavel wasn't wood hitting wood. It was a chain snapping. Vanessa stood up abruptly, her chair screeching like a wounded animal. She turned to me, not the court, not the cameras, me. Her eyes didn't hold hatred anymore. Only desperation. "Please, Eleanor," she said. I was angry, but I was never. I didn't mean to know. I stood slowly, feeling the full gravity of my years, but not with weakness. With presence. "You meant it every time. The day you made me sleep on the floor, the night you poured salt into my wounds and laughed. You meant it." She opened her mouth to plead again, but the bailiff placed a firm hand on her shoulder. Michael was in the back of the courtroom. He didn't stand. He didn't speak. He just stared at his hands like he wished they belonged to someone else. Guilt isn't heavy until it's too late to put down. They escorted Vanessa out in cuffs. And for the first time in my life, I didn't flinch when a door slammed behind me. The news spread fast. Not just local channels, but national ones. 73-year-old woman wins court battle against abusive daughter-in-law. Eleanor Morgan, The voice elder abuse couldn't silence. I became something I never expected, a symbol. But symbols are lonely things. Back home, the girls were waiting. Layla had made soup, even though she burned the garlic. I sat with them at the table and looked at their eyes, wide, wounded, watching me like I held the map out of hell. I'm not your savior, I told them. But I'm not afraid anymore. And neither should you be. They nodded. That night, while washing the dishes, I found a note slid under the back door. It was from Michael. I lost everything. Vanessa's lawyers took the rest. I'm living in my car. I'm sorry. Please, can I come home? I folded the paper without reading the rest. Tossed it in the fireplace. Forgiveness was not owed. Not to those who stood by while I bled. I wasn't here to fix them. I was here to show girls like Layla what survival looked like when it stood up and fought back. The fire in the hearth crackled as the paper turned to ash. The past was gone. But justice? That was just beginning. They thought it was over. The court gave me my dignity back. The news gave me a spotlight. The people gave me applause. But I wasn't finished. Justice is what they call it when the system finally listens. Revenge is what happens when you teach them never to forget. The first to come crawling wasn't Michael. Not really. That pathetic note in the fireplace was nothing more than guilt dressed up in pity. No, the real first was Vanessa's mother, Lorraine. She arrived in my driveway with pearls too tight on her thick neck and tears that stank of vinegar. Claimed she was ashamed of her daughter. Claimed she didn't know. I stood on my porch in silence, one hand resting on the railing where I used to grip just to stay upright after a beating. Lorraine wiped fake tears with real diamonds. She was always cruel, but we thought she'd grow out of it. Then her voice dropped, low and slick. Michael has nowhere to go. He's sleeping in the parking lot behind the Walgreens. I stared at her and asked only one question. Where were you when I bled on your daughter's bathroom tile? She blinked. Where were you when she spat in my porridge and told your grandkids I was too dirty to love? When she smeared dog feces on my pillow as a joke? When she locked me outside in a thunderstorm because I forgot to put the cap on the toothpaste? She didn't have answers. Just more tears. Just more shame. I could help him, I said. But I won't. And you won't either. Please, he's my son. And I was your daughter's victim. Consider us even. I shut the door. And oh, how good it felt. Not because I was cruel, but because I wasn't weak anymore. I finally understood that forgiveness, when forced, is another cage. And I wasn't building cages anymore, I was burning them. 3 days later, Layla came running inside with a newspaper in her hand. Miss Eleanor, she whispered, wide-eyed. You need to see this. Front page. Vanessa Griffin transferred to State Psychiatric Hospital after attempted suicide in holding cell. She'd tried to cut her wrists with a piece of broken mirror. I didn't feel sorry, but I didn't feel triumphant either. I felt vindicated. This wasn't about wishing her dead. No, this was about her finally feeling what she once made me live. For weeks, months, years. Salt in the wound. Heel to the ribs. Lies whispered into phones while I choked back blood and begged for help. Now the only sound she heard in her cell was the memory of me, my cries, my silence, my screams, and the knowledge that I was out here, not just surviving, but thriving. They wanted me gone. Now I was unavoidable. The house filled with girls. Not just Layla anymore. There was Denise, 32, limping from a fractured hip, thrown downstairs by a boyfriend. There was Hope, 64, covered in bruises from her own daughter. Each one of them walked in with hollow eyes and walked out with something sharp behind their gaze. I didn't just feed them. I trained them. How to speak with power. How to take up space in a room. How to record everything. Keep evidence. Fight the courts. Document the wounds they used to cover with shame. They started calling me Mother Iron. At first, it was a joke. But it stuck. And soon enough, a journalist from New York came knocking. I want to write about your house, she said. This home. These girls. The battle you fought. I looked at her over my teacup and said, "You'll write the truth. Not inspiration. Not pity. Truth. The cruelty. The rot. The silence that let it all fester." She nodded. So I let her in. When the article came out, it shook the whole damn state. Mother Iron's house, where broken girls learned to bite back. People emailed from all over. Women in their 70s, 80s, from Georgia, from Poland, from Mexico, from trailer parks and penthouses alike. One message read, "I'm 75. My daughter hits me when I don't stand up fast enough. My pastor says to pray for her. But now I think I'm going to pray for myself instead. Thank you, Eleanor." I cried for 3 hours. Not because I was sad, but because I realized I wasn't alone anymore. And neither were they. Then one night, around midnight, a knock. Not police. Not reporters. It was Michael. He looked like a stray dog. Thin. Unshaven. Wet. "Mom, please," he said, voice cracking. "I'm sick. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I lost my job. My house. My kids won't speak to me. Vanessa's in the hospital. She might not make it." He dropped to his knees. I was wrong. I let it happen. I knew what she was doing. I just thought. "I thought you'd survive it. Like you always did." I stood above him in the doorway. "Survive it?" I whispered. "I didn't. I died every day in that house. What came back to life wasn't the mother you buried under your silence." He sobbed. "Let me stay. Just for a night. Please." I looked down at my son, the same one who once watched Vanessa pour bleach into my shampoo, and laughed. Then I leaned in and said softly, "No. You don't get to be saved by the woman you let rot." And I shut the door. They tried to call it a safe house. Reporters. Volunteers. Social workers. But I called it what it really was, a war room. The living room held more than couches now. Whiteboards mapped out names of abusive husbands, manipulative sons, cruel daughters. Court dates. Shelter contacts. Evidence folders. We had a drawer labeled heels with shoes exactly like the ones Vanessa used to hit me, blood still caked in the seams. Not as souvenirs. As reminders. This wasn't therapy. This was retribution training. I made them strong. Layla was first. We found her mother, 2 towns over, shacked up with a boyfriend who'd put cigarette butts out on her skin. Layla didn't cry when we confronted them. She didn't scream either. She filmed it. Posted it. Meet the man who calls himself my mom's lover, but screams at her like she's trash. 500,000 views. 3 arrests. A restraining order. She came home and collapsed into my arms. "You did that," she whispered. "You gave me teeth." Then there was Jeanette. 71. Frail, thin, always holding a cardigan shut over her stomach. One night, she showed me her ribs. Each one a ridge of old bruises. Her own son beat her because she used too much of the food stamps. "You think it's too late for me to fight?" she asked. "To matter." I looked her dead in the eye. "Not only do you matter, you're dangerous." We trained for 3 weeks. Court forms. Self-defense. Camera hidden in a brooch. We got him arrested live on Facebook. The police took Jeanette's son out in handcuffs while she stood on the porch and didn't blink. "Tell them," she said to the camera, "Mother Iron sends her regards." The name spread. Whispers in shelters. Code among neighbors. Call Eleanor. Find the Iron House. I was no longer just Eleanor Morgan. I was the woman who got out and dragged others out with her. And the ones who hurt us started to get scared. One night, someone threw a rock through my window. The note tied to it said, "Witch. Stop turning women against their families." I laughed. I framed that note and hung it by the door. Because if saving women from being spit on, stomped on, left to die quietly in their own homes, made me a witch, then I was the queen of hell. A woman named Rosa came to us next. She didn't speak much English. 68. From El Salvador. beaten with a broomstick by her daughter-in-law whenever she forgot to pick up the grandkids on time. She had no ID, no money. She slept outside a laundromat before someone found her and told her about me. We took her in, and I watched as the others fed her, clothed her, sat with her while she cried. It hit me hard. This house wasn't mine anymore. It was ours. A place where pain didn't get to rot in silence, where even the quietest woman learned to roar. Then came the phone call I never expected. A city commissioner. A woman. "We heard about you," she said. "We're thinking about starting a local elder abuse task force. Would you be willing to consult?" I nearly dropped the phone. Me? The woman they once called senile? Crazy? Unfit to live alone? I grinned. "I'll do more than consult," I said. "I'll name names." And I did. The Iron House became a weekly broadcast. Women from every walk of life wrote in, told their stories, asked for help. Some didn't even want help. They just wanted someone to say, "I believe you." So I did, over and over, until I couldn't speak some nights. But I never stopped. Because the moment I let them forget what it was like to bleed in silence is the moment the world gets cold again. And I'll burn it down before I let that happen. They didn't see us coming. Because no one watches old women. They think we're harmless. They think we're tired, confused, too soft, or too far gone to strike. But that's the secret. We remember everything. And once we rise, we never sit back down. It began with Denise, the man who shattered her hip, the one who said she fell wrong while trying to cook, was out on bail. He moved on to a new girlfriend. Younger, just 23. The girl's name was Kyla. She had a bruise under her eye when she showed up at my door. "I saw the article," she said. "I saw what you did for Denise." He started hitting me too. Denise didn't flinch when she saw Kyla. Instead, she reached into her closet, pulled out a box labeled Truth, and dropped it on the table. Inside, photos, texts, voicemails, doctor's records, everything we couldn't use in the first trial. We paired that with Kyla's own bruises, her own story. Then we live-streamed a press conference from our front lawn. Denise stood behind Kyla, one hand on her shoulder, looking directly into the camera. "This time," she said, "he won't get a second chance." Because I already lived it. Within 24 hours, the man was back in custody. No bail, no exit. We didn't just rescue Kyla. We made Denise a weapon. And they kept coming. An email from Alaska, a voicemail from a woman in Missouri, crying as she whispered, "My son said he'd burn the house down with me in it if I called the police. I'm 81. I have no one. Please, tell me what to do." We built a system. Escape kits, bus tickets hidden in mailed books, coded phone calls. "How's the weather? Meant are you in danger?" The Iron House became more than a shelter. It became a resistance. But not everyone celebrated us. Pastors told their congregations we were anti-family. Men's groups called us man-haters. One man even drove by the house and spat at my feet. "You're making women think they're above discipline," he snarled. I smiled. "I'm making women remember they're human." Then I pulled the heel Vanessa used to beat me out of my purse. He turned pale. "Would you like a demonstration?" He never came back. But the real fire came from within. One of the girls, Raya, had a breakdown. She'd been here for a month. Said she was getting better. But one night, she tried to poison the soup pot. We caught her just in time. "Why?" I asked, after the others held her down and I looked into her eyes. She sobbed. "I don't want to heal, Eleanor. I want them dead. I want to watch them beg like I did." I understood her. Too well. But I couldn't let the house become what we were running from. "We don't turn into them," I told her. "We outlive them." She went silent. Then she whispered, "Can I ever feel whole?" I put my hand on her heart. "You already are. Broken doesn't mean empty. It means real." Meanwhile, Michael kept writing letters, emails, desperate voicemails. "Mom, I'm sorry. Please. Just let me help with the house. I want to do something good. I ignored him. He had let me rot for years. He had heard me scream and turned up the television. He had helped Vanessa by the heels that split my scalp. Now he wanted redemption? Not yet. Redemption must bleed. Then came something I never expected. A knock. Midnight. It wasn't Michael. It was Vanessa's oldest son. My grandson. I hadn't seen him in 3 years. He looked taller, lean, nervous. "Grandma," he said softly. "They told me you were crazy. But I've seen the videos. I read everything. I didn't know. I swear." My hands shook. He looked at the scar above my eyebrow. The one his mother gave me. And he started crying. "I'm not like her," he whispered. "Please. Let me help you. I want to undo what she did." I hugged him. Tight. And I whispered, "Then learn. Watch. Protect." That's how men undo it. That night, I sat alone in the garden, watching the moon, listening to the house breathe. I had turned my pain into shelter, my scars into shields, and the ones who had hurt me were now either forgotten or learning what it felt like to be helpless. I wasn't done. Not until the last scream went heard. Not until the last bruise had a witness. Not until women like me could grow old without fear. Let them call us witches. Let them spit and sneer. We are the grandmothers they never should have crossed. And we remember everything. It had been almost 4 decades since I last saw his face. My first husband. Not Michael's father, the one before him. The one I married at 17 because Mama said, "A man with strong hands will keep you safe." Strong hands. Yes. Strong enough to choke me until I blacked out when the potatoes weren't hot enough. Strong enough to throw my wedding ring down the garbage disposal while I begged for forgiveness over a burnt roast. His name was Rayford Elijah Cole. He left me when Michael was 4. Left bruises, broken ribs, and a hospital bill I had to pay by cleaning motel rooms in silence. I buried him in my mind the way you bury a stray dog that bites too many hands without a funeral. Then came the letter. Delivered by hand. No return address. But I knew the handwriting. Slanted and smug. "Eleanor, I saw you on the news. Heard you got famous. Heard you got powerful. I'm dying. Liver failure. I live 2 counties over. They told me I have months. Can't stop thinking about you. About the things I did. I'm sorry. If you want to spit in my face, I'll let you. Just, please, let me see your face again before I leave this earth." I read the letter 5 times. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just felt cold. Because part of me still remembered the girl who cleaned his blood off her blouse and whispered to herself, "He doesn't mean it." That girl had long since died. And I'd buried her too. Layla sat with me as I folded the letter. "You don't have to go," she said. "I know. But you want to." "No," I replied, "I need to." I went alone. Found the house. Small, rotting porch. Yard full of rusted tools and dead grass. He came to the door with a cane and trembling hands. I didn't recognize his body, wasted and thin, but his eyes? Still like storm clouds. Still like danger. Except this time, I wasn't afraid. He leaned against the doorframe and gave me a broken smile. "Still beautiful," he said. "Still breathing," I replied. We sat at his kitchen table. The room stank of decay, of regret, of piss and denial. He started crying. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I want to hear what it felt like. From you." So I told him. About the night he slapped me so hard I couldn't hear for 2 days. About the way I slept with a knife under my pillow and still woke up terrified. About the time I was pregnant and he shoved me into a wall and said, "Maybe you'll learn to walk softer now." And he cried more. Shook like a dog in a thunderstorm. "I was a monster," he whispered. "Yes," I said. "You want to hit me back? Slap me? Spit on me?" "No." "Why not?" I leaned close. "Because what's happening to you now? This body wasting away? That's your justice. That's God's hand." He sobbed. Please. Stay. I'm alone. I need someone. I stood up. Alone is what you gave me, Rayford. Every single night. Every bruise. Every silence. He reached for my hand. I didn't flinch. I let him touch my fingers. Then I bent down and said, I hope your soul burns clean, but you'll burn alone. And I walked out. That night, I went back to the iron house. Jeanette was teaching self-defense to a new girl. Rosa was folding laundry and humming a lullaby. I stood at the door and just watched. They didn't notice I was crying. Not from sadness, but from a kind of joy that comes after survival. A joy no one can steal, not even death. Trust is the most delicate thing in the world. You don't notice when it's being chipped away, only when it finally cracks. And when it cracked, it cut deeper than any bruise ever had. Her name was Carmen. 74. Elegant. Always wore silk scarves, even when she was just doing dishes. She used to sing opera in her kitchen and had a laugh that could light up the dark corners of our house. When she arrived, she told us her story. Her son locked her in the garage for 2 days because she forgot to take her medication. Her daughter-in-law called her a walking corpse and spit in her coffee. She said she was found collapsed in the hallway by a neighbor. We welcomed her in. No questions asked. Because that's what we do. But I should have asked more. Because 3 weeks later, Rosa's necklace went missing. Then Jeanette's emergency cash fund. Then someone tampered with our files, wiping out a whole month's worth of video testimonies. I checked the camera logs. Someone had unplugged them during the hours everything went wrong. And when we confronted Carmen, she smiled. Tired. Sad. And she said, "You have no proof, Eleanor. None of it will hold up." That's when I knew. This wasn't just theft. This was sabotage. I dug deeper. Called her old address. Turns out, Carmen had never lived with a son. Or a daughter-in-law. She'd never even had children. Her name wasn't Carmen Alvarez. It was Martha Carlton. And she had a record. Fraud. Elder impersonation. Theft. She'd infiltrated 3 other shelters before ours. And now she was here, sleeping in our beds, eating from our table, using our pain for her profit. I called a house meeting. All 12 women. I stood in the center of the room, heart like a drumbeat in my chest. She lied. I told them. She's not who she said she is. Martha stood in the doorway, eyes defiant. Is it lying, she said, or just surviving? Surviving doesn't mean stealing. She shrugged. You opened your doors. I just walked through them. Is that my crime or your naivete? I stepped forward. Slow. You made yourself part of our story. You sat beside women who have been burned, beaten, tortured, and you mimicked their suffering like it was a costume. You drank from the same cup and spit poison in it. That's not survival, Martha. It's strategy, she snapped. You think the world changes because you're loud? I got more money out of pity than you ever will from protests. She turned to leave. But I wasn't done. You don't walk out, I said. She stopped. You crawl. Then I called the police. We handed over the camera footage, her fingerprints, her real name. And as they cuffed her on the porch, she snarled over her shoulder. None of you are safe. You think women are good? Some of us are worse than any man. I didn't flinch. I know, I said. But we're better because we hold each other accountable. She spat. The officers pulled her away. That night, the house felt colder. Rosa cried in the laundry room. Jeanette didn't come out of her room for hours. Even I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the teacup in front of me like it might bite. Because betrayal doesn't always come with fists or knives. Sometimes it comes with warm smiles and fake stories. Sometimes the worst wounds are the ones you believed in. But by morning, we stitched ourselves back together. Layla passed out hot chocolate. Jeanette taught the others how to encrypt files. And I made a rule. No one joins the Iron House now without being fully seen. Not to exclude, but to protect. Because what we have here isn't just safety, it's sacred. And I'll burn the world down before I let anyone desecrate it again. The last time I stood in a courtroom, I was 28. I had 2 broken ribs, a purple eye, and a baby on my hip. And the man who did it to me sat across the aisle, smiling. He walked free that day. They said there wasn't enough evidence, that I was too emotional, that women exaggerate. I never went back. Until now. It was Michael, my son, the one who had watched me bleed, watched me limp, watched me beg, and never lifted a hand to help. Now it was his turn to be seen. The DA called me 2 weeks before the hearing, said Michael was facing charges for elder neglect, coercion, and financial fraud. I laughed when I heard the list. It was incomplete. They didn't include cowardice. The court was packed. News cameras, victims' rights groups. Even a few women from the Iron House came, sitting in the back row like a silent army. Michael looked small in his cheap suit. His lawyer looked confident. But confidence doesn't shield you from truth. When they called my name, I walked slow. Not because of age, because I wanted them to feel every step. I raised my hand, swore the oath, and then I looked directly at the jury. My name is Eleanor Grace Winslow. I am 74 years old. I survived a daughter-in-law who beat me with heeled shoes. I survived my own son watching, recording, and laughing as I begged her to stop. I survived being locked in my room without food for 2 days. But what I didn't survive, what almost broke me, was knowing the child I gave life to let it happen. Michael wouldn't meet my eyes. The lawyer objected. The judge allowed it. I continued. For years, I blamed myself. Thought I raised him wrong. Thought maybe I deserved it. I looked to the jury. Straight at a woman in her 60s with silver hair. Her hands clenched in her lap. But pain is a mirror. And sometimes the reflection is ugly because the people around you are monsters. I described the bruises, the screaming, the salt in my wounds, literally and metaphorically. The way Vanessa smiled while she dug her heels into my back like she was crushing a cigarette. I screamed for help. He shut the door. One juror cried. I didn't, because I had no more tears left for Michael. His lawyer tried to twist the story. She has a house now. She's running a foundation. Clearly, she's benefited. I leaned into the mic. I didn't benefit from abuse. I survived it. There's a difference. And if you can't tell, you're part of the problem. He looked stunned. The judge didn't stop me. Eleanor, the prosecutor said gently, what would you say to your son now? I turned to Michael. He looked up, finally. And I said, I carried you in my body. I fed you with hands that would later shake from trauma you helped cause. And now? Now I carry none of you. You are a stranger to me. A stranger who watched his mother rot and only looked up when the cameras came on. He whispered something. I couldn't hear it, but I didn't need to. The court recessed. I walked out into the sunlight. Rosa was waiting with a scarf and a bottle of water. You did it, she whispered. No, I said. I told it. The world's the one that needs to do it. 2 days later, the verdict came in, guilty on all charges. Michael wept as they let him out. I watched without blinking, not out of revenge, but because I needed him to remember, this is what it feels like when your victim has a voice. I was planting tomatoes. Fingers in the earth, warm sun on my back, the scent of basil on the wind. Peace, until I heard her voice. Eleanor. I turned slowly, and there she stood. Vanessa. The woman who once pressed designer heels into my spine like she was crushing a cigarette. The one who poured salt into my open wounds and laughed like she was seasoning meat. The one who looked me in the eyes and said, You're just a burden in pearls. Now, her pearls were gone. Her makeup smeared. Her face thinner, tighter, like life had taken its pound of flesh, and then some. I stood, dust on my hands, rage buried beneath my ribs like a dormant volcano. What do you want? I asked. She swallowed hard. My apartment. They evicted me. My name's been dragged all over the news since the trial. I lost my job. My friends won't take my calls. I've got nowhere to go. And I thought maybe you'd let me stay. Just for a few nights. That moment? That was the test. The universe sat quiet, watching, waiting to see if forgiveness would win. It didn't. I smiled. Slowly. You want to stay in my house? I know I don't deserve. No, you don't. She looked down. I'm sorry, she whispered. I stepped closer. No, Vanessa. Sorry is what you say when you forget someone's birthday. What you did was torture. What you did was strip a 73-year-old woman naked, beat her until her hip nearly snapped, pour salt in her wounds, and record it while smirking. She flinched. I leaned in. You called me a rotting doormat. You laughed when I cried. You gagged me with my own scarf so your husband wouldn't have to hear me scream. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I was sick back then. Twisted. I thought I was strong. No, I snapped. You thought power meant cruelty. Then I told her, you want a bed? Fine. But you won't sleep in it? I brought her inside. Let her pass the rooms filled with strong, laughing, healing women. Into the old basement, where we kept storage. I had already prepared it, because some part of me always knew she'd crawl back. No bed. Just a cold, concrete floor. A space heater. A metal chair. A steel bucket for her business. She gasped. You're not serious. Oh, I am, I whispered. This is where I slept after your beatings. Where I crawled when I couldn't stand. Where I lay, bleeding into my clothes, praying for death to come quietly. She shook her head. This isn't right, this is vengeance. Yes, I said, locking the door behind her. It is. For 7 days, she stayed there. I fed her from the same bowls I once ate from: cold rice, stale bread, bitter tea. Every morning, she had to scrub the floor. Every night, she had to sit in silence and write a page, a confession, a list of what she did to me, how she did it, and why. She cried, screamed, begged. The other women didn't pity her. They watched. Silently. Some said it was cruel. But cruelty, when aimed at the cruel, becomes justice. On the 8th day, I unlocked the door. She was on her knees, hair tangled, lips chapped. I've written it all, she croaked. Every word. I can't take any more. I understand now. Please, I stared down at her. You don't understand, I said softly. Then teach me, she whispered. So I bent down, took the stack of papers she'd written, nearly 70 pages of remorse and rot, and I said, take this. Mail it to every women's shelter in the county. Sign your name. Post it online. Own it. Then maybe you'll have earned 1 grain of grace. She looked stunned. You're letting me go? No, I replied. I'm releasing you. You'll carry the weight now. Not me. She left with her head bowed. She didn't thank me. Good. I wasn't offering mercy. I was offering memory. Because some ghosts don't get peace. They get haunted. It's easier to brace for a storm when you see the thunderclouds coming. But what about the betrayal that comes wrapped in kindness? What about the person who says, I did this for your own good, as they drive the knife between your ribs? Her name was Jeanette. You've heard me speak of her before. 81. Quiet. Graceful. The kind of woman who smelled like lavender and always knew when you needed tea or silence. She was the first to hold my hand when I cried about Michael. She called me my lioness. And I believed, deep in my soul, she would never hurt me. But I forgot something. Love doesn't protect you from betrayal. It only makes it cut deeper. It started with a phone call. A man from a private health facility called. Asked if I had confirmed the transport. Transport? He said Jeanette had submitted my name as legal next of kin and gave consent for me to be relocated for safety and health monitoring. I laughed. I'm the one running this house, I said. Who the hell do you think needs relocating? That's when the nausea hit. Not because of what he said, but because I knew exactly who had set it up. I confronted her after dinner. The rest of the women had gone to bed. The kitchen smelled of chamomile and baked peaches. Jeanette sat at the table, folding napkins like they were origami birds. You tried to ship me off, I said. like some dementia case in denial. She didn't deny it. I did. Just like that. No shame. No hesitation. You're getting tired, Eleanor. The stress is breaking you. You've been forgetful. Agitated. You locked yourself in your office for 3 hours last week and didn't even realize it. I stepped closer. That wasn't confusion. That was privacy. I was writing a grant. You forgot Rose's birthday. I stared. That was true. And yet, it didn't justify this. You tried to put me in a facility, Jeanette. I tried to protect you. From yourself. From what you're becoming. My voice cracked. What am I becoming? She stood. And said it with the softness of a lover. Vengeful. Dangerous. Obsessed. And that's when I saw it. She wasn't trying to hurt me out of hate. She thought she was saving me. That's what made it worse. I didn't scream. Didn't cry. I just nodded. And I packed her bags myself. She cried. Asked for forgiveness. I didn't mean to betray you. But she had. Not with fists. Not with salt. But with silence and forms and signatures made in my name. I can't have someone here who thinks I've lost my mind, I said. Especially when I'm the only one making sure we all stay sane. She left the next morning. No hugs. Just a folded napkin with my name written in cursive. I burned it. I didn't tell the others what really happened. Said Jeanette went to visit family. Because sometimes the truth bruises more than the lie. But the betrayal? It stayed with me. Because I'd rather be hated by my enemies than doubted by the people I love. They came in suits. Not uniforms. But it didn't matter, wolves still smell like wolves, no matter the wool they wear. 2 of them. A man with a clipboard and eyes like dead glass. And a woman who wore her pity like perfume, overbearing and artificial. Ms. Winslow, the man said. I was in the garden again. Knees in the dirt. Tomatoes don't lie, people do. That's me, I said, standing slowly. They flashed badges. Department of Family and Adult Services. He spoke first. We received an anonymous report. Claims you're housing vulnerable elderly women in unsanitary, unsafe conditions without a proper care license. I laughed. Loud and dry. Let me guess. The person who filed it doesn't sign her letters, but loves pearls and pity parties. They didn't respond. But I knew. Jeanette. She didn't go quietly. She went vengefully. They asked to see the house. I let them. Rooms clean. Beds made. Medication charts posted. Emergency numbers printed. Walk rails installed. Even the kitchen had been remodeled for wheelchair access. The man frowned. The woman wondered. They asked about food. We showed them the pantry, overstocked with donations and fresh produce from the garden. They asked about medical care. Rosa brought out our nurse log, visits logged weekly, paid through the community health fund we built. Still, they weren't satisfied. Then they asked the question that made my spine ice over. Is there anyone here? Hiding from family? Or authorities? I didn't answer. Not right away. Because I knew what this was. This wasn't about safety. This was about control. Yes, several of our women had walked out on abusive husbands, neglectful children, even state-run homes that smelled like death and served food like prison gruel. But they were free. They weren't hiding, they were healing. And the system didn't like that. Because when broken women fix themselves without permission, the people who profit from pain start to panic. I met their eyes. Do you know what it feels like, I said, to be 74 years old, covered in bruises, crawling across your own living room floor while your daughter-in-law shoves salt into your wounds and your son turns up the volume on the TV so he doesn't have to hear you scream? Silence. Do you know what it feels like to be told you're exaggerating when your bones crack like twigs? More silence. So, before you ask me if these women are hiding, ask yourself why they had to run in the first place. They gave me a warning. Told me we had 30 days to apply for licensing. That if we didn't comply, they'd shut Iron House down. I stared at the papers they handed me, then tore them in half. You don't own us, I said. But the truth? They did. On paper. In court. In ink. But not in spirit. That night, we had a meeting. All 12 women. No secrets. I told them what happened. Told them we had a choice. 1. Bend. 2. Break. 3. Or burn the whole damn thing down and rebuild it our way. They voted. Unanimous. We'd go legal, but on our terms. We'd register not as a facility, but as a private elder cooperative, self-funded, self-governed, legally shielded. The paperwork would be brutal, but not as brutal as being voiceless. And me? I made one final phone call that night. To a lawyer I hadn't spoken to in 30 years. The one who let my ex walk free. I'm cashing in my favor, I said. He paused, then asked one question. Who are we burying? I should have known something was wrong when Marjorie offered to do the books. She'd only been with us for 5 weeks, quiet, graceful, always one step behind the shadows. Said she came from a retirement home in Tulsa where her son had forgotten she existed. She spoke like someone who'd been shattered and taped back together too many times. I welcomed her, gave her the lavender room with the window that caught the morning sun. I told her, "You're safe here." I meant it. But Marjorie? She wasn't here for safety. She was here for secrets. It started small. Receipts missing from the donation jars. Petty cash unaccounted for. A few medicine refills that didn't show up at the pharmacy. Then Rosa's necklace went missing. Then Ruth's pain meds. Then I found the letter in the trash, half-burned, but still readable. 2. Adult Protective Services unsanctioned elder living arrangement, suspected abuse, fraudulent activity. I stared at the signature. M. Carter. Marjorie's last name. I didn't confront her at first. I watched. Let her stew in her own lie. She'd leave in the middle of the night to walk. Come back with perfume on her wrists and smugness in her step. I checked her phone when she left it unlocked in the common room. Photos. Of our medical cabinet. Our grant papers. Our women. And worst of all, a selfie. Smiling. Standing in front of the Iron House sign. Captioned, "Case almost closed. Target is soft. Trusts easily. ETA, 3 weeks to shut down." My hands shook. I'd been beaten by heels. Salted like a carcass. Strangled with scarves. But this? This was betrayal wearing the face of kindness. This was treason with tea and fake tears. I called a house meeting, locked the doors, read the message aloud. The women gasped. Ruth cried. Rosa stood like steel. Then Marjorie walked in. She froze. Saw her phone in my hand. Saw the truth on our faces. "You lied," I said. "No," she said softly. I reported. I stepped closer. "You said your son abandoned you." She smiled. "Oh, he didn't. He sent me. APS needed an insider. Someone soft. Someone your age. You're not even 70, are you?" She shrugged. 65. Close enough. And that's when I saw it. She wasn't here for money. Or sympathy. She was here to destroy us. Because we were a threat. Iron House was proof that women could survive outside their cages, without permission, without oversight. To the system, we were a rebellion. To her, a paycheck. I didn't scream. I didn't call the police. I gave her one choice. "You walk out now," I said, "and you tell your masters you failed." She smirked. "You won't lay a hand on me." "No," I replied. "But Ruth might." Behind me, Ruth cracked her knuckles. Corrections officer. Gentle soul. But only if you earned it. Marjorie left with her pride in one hand and her teeth almost gnawed in the other. But the damage was already done. Within days, we got the notice. Investigation pending. Shelter under review. Iron House must suspend all intakes. The women panicked. Some packed. Some cried. Some asked if they had to go back to the monsters who made them. I told them no. I swore they wouldn't. Even if it meant taking the war to the courthouse steps with fire in our hearts and truth in our fists. I never wanted to see his face again. Not in this life. Not even in hell. But when the courtroom doors opened and I saw Daniel Briggs walk in, I felt my bones turn to ice. Same walk, same tailored suit, same voice that once said, "You're exaggerating, Eleanor. No jury will believe she beat you over burnt toast." He was my son's attorney. The man who got Michael custody of my grandson. The man who made me look like a senile old lunatic just to protect a monster with a mortgage. And now, he was walking into court to represent me. The judge adjusted her glasses. "Mr. Briggs, you are listed as counsel for the respondent?" He nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. I am representing Ms. Winslow and the Iron House Cooperative." I couldn't breathe, because this man, he was the reason I lost everything once. Why I bled in silence. Why I slept in hospital rooms and hid bruises with scarves and smiled through cracked teeth. He was the reason they didn't believe me back then. And now he was here, saying he was on my side? After court adjourned for lunch, I cornered him in the hallway. My hands shook. "I should claw your eyes out," I said. He didn't flinch. "I deserve that," he whispered. "Then why are you here?" He looked down. "My wife left me. Said she couldn't live with someone who defends monsters. My daughter won't speak to me. She showed me your photo. Said, you destroyed her. She could have been you, Dad." His voice cracked. "She's 21 now. And she's afraid of men." I stared. "You think helping me now will erase what you did?" "No," he said. "But it's the only thing keeping me from putting a bullet in my mouth." I walked away. Didn't forgive him. Didn't thank him. But in court? He was fire. He tore through the case against us like a beast unchained. Brought in character witnesses, doctors, social workers, even 2 of our neighbors who said Iron House was a miracle, not a menace. He showed financial records, clean, clear, audited. He even had a video. One of our own. Rosa, in her old house, sobbing, blood on her sweater, saying, "I don't want to die here. I want to go to Iron House. I want to live." The court went silent. The judge leaned forward. "I see no reason to dissolve or penalize this cooperative. You're providing care, not chaos. You're healing the forgotten." Case dismissed. The women behind me cried. I didn't. I just stood. Still, silent, and stared at Daniel. He looked back, eyes full of the kind of shame money can't wash off. Outside, he stopped me. "Do you hate me?" he asked. I didn't blink. I did. "And now? I don't think about you at all." He swallowed. "I'm sorry, Eleanor." I leaned in close. "You're not forgiven. But you're heard. That's more than I ever got from you back then." He nodded, walked away, and I let him, because I had bigger things to fight for now. The women. The house. The future. It was raining when she arrived. A thin drizzle, soft enough to kiss, cold enough to make you ache. I was in the kitchen, peeling apples for a pie Ruth swore could make you forget every bad man you ever met, when Rosa called out, "Eleanor, you'd better come." I walked to the porch, and there she was, barefoot, soaked, clutching a pink plastic backpack and holding the hand of a little girl with tangled curls and wide, frightened eyes. The woman looked familiar, too familiar. Her mouth trembled, and then she said it. "Eleanor, I'm your granddaughter." I almost dropped the peeler, because the girl standing there, she had my mother's eyes, storm gray, the kind that never blink when they should. And the woman? She had Michael's mouth, tight-lipped, nervous. But her voice? It was gentle, tired, raw. "My name's Cassandra," she said. "My dad was Michael." "Was," I repeated. She nodded. "He's dead." I didn't flinch. "How?" "Heart attack," she whispered. "Last month." I stepped back. Not because of grief. Because of the timing. "You didn't know about me," she said. "I get it. He hated you. Said you were crazy. Dangerous." I laughed. Sharp. Bitter. "Of course he did." She motioned to the little girl. "Her name's Lena. She's 6. She's different." I looked at the child. Skin too pale for summer. Lips twitching like she wanted to speak but had forgotten how. She doesn't talk much. Not since. Cassandra's voice broke. She was there. When he hit me. When he shoved her into the wall. She remembers everything, even if she won't say it. They had no bags. No money. Just each other. And a bloodline I had tried to burn out of me. I should have slammed the door. Should have said, not my circus, not my child. But Lena looked up at me. And in her eyes, I saw myself. I let them in. Set up the extra room. Made tea. Ruth watched me. Quiet. Studying. Later, after Cassandra put Lena to sleep, she sat at the kitchen table with me. And told me the truth. Michael beat me since I was 17, she said. I got pregnant by mistake. He told me to shut up, marry him, and stay quiet. Did you love him? She looked away. I feared him. She showed me the scars. One on her ribs from a fall down the stairs. Another on her thigh from a shattered wine bottle. He told me you were violent. That you tried to steal him from his son. That you lied in court. I looked down. I did lie, I said. To protect him. She nodded. I know. And now he's dead. And I don't have anyone left. Except you. There it was. The ask. Not in words. But in the way her fingers trembled as she gripped the cup. She wanted me to forgive her for being his. To let her stay. To let that child, my blood, grow up safe. And part of me wanted to say no. To shove her back into the storm and say, you let him destroy me. You never came looking. But then Lena woke up, walked into the kitchen, dragging her backpack behind her, and reached for my hand. Without a word. Just trust. And pain. And something that felt like hope. I closed my fingers around hers. Welcome home, I said. And Cassandra cried. But this isn't a happy ending. Because forgiveness comes with rules. And trust isn't free. It was a plain envelope. No return address. No postage. Just slid under the door like a threat wrapped in silence. I found it at dawn. Ruth was making coffee. The others were still asleep. I opened it casually, thinking it was another local trying to politely suggest we take our aging, scarred selves elsewhere. But when I pulled out the photos, I couldn't breathe. There were 4. All black and white. All taken from outside the house. And in each one, Lena, sleeping, playing with her toy piano, drawing by the window, changing into pajamas. The last one was zoomed in, her shirt halfway off, little ribs, pale, fragile, watched. I dropped the photos. My knees buckled. Ruth caught me. I don't remember screaming, but I know my mouth was open and the whole house came running. Cassandra grabbed the photos off the floor. Oh my God, she choked. Is this my ex's brother? She held up a photo she kept in her wallet, a man with greasy hair and cruel lips. Elias, Michael's brother. He used to come by and look at Lena like she was a thing, not a child. He was obsessed with her since birth. That's why I ran. That's why we came to you. I snapped. No, that's too soft. I unleashed. Everyone in the war room, I said. Now. We gathered in the kitchen. The table was suddenly a war map. Ruth brought out the drawer where we kept the keys and emergency weapons. Cassandra was sobbing. I thought he didn't know where we were, I interrupted, cold as winter. He does now. I pulled out the box. The one I swore I'd never open again. Inside? My old Smith & Wesson. .38 Special. The one Michael stole from me years ago. The one the police gave back after he died. I hadn't touched it since. Now, it felt like an extension of my will. Tonight, I said, we bait him. Ruth nodded. Rosa stood tall. Even little Agnes, who couldn't walk without her cane, raised her chin and said, I still got my husband's shotgun. I'll bless it if I must. We didn't call the cops. Cops had failed every one of us before. Iron House didn't dial 911. Iron House protected its own. We staged the house like it was normal. Lights on. Curtains open. Lena in bed. Cassandra reading. But beneath that calm, every woman had a job. Ruth watched the cameras. Rosa patrolled the back door. Agnes sat in the parlor, shotgun across her lap, humming gospel like a warning hymn. And me? I waited on the porch, in the dark, gun in lap. 1:42 a.m. I heard it, the crunch of gravel, the creak of the back gate, the soft scrape of boots against wood. I didn't move, didn't breathe, just waited. Then a shadow passed by the window, paused, pressed a camera to the glass. And I stood. Step back from the house, I said. He turned. Elias. His face warped with surprise, then contempt. You think you can hide her from me? He sneered. That girl's got my blood too. I lifted the revolver. She has my blood. And I don't share. He stepped forward. You wouldn't shoot me. You're old. Broken. I smiled. That's what Michael thought too. One shot. Straight into the ground, inches from his foot. He jumped back, stumbled, fell. The others rushed out. Ruth with a bat. Rosa with a taser. Agnes screaming, "You want hell, boy?" I invented it. He tried to run. Didn't get far. We tied him up. Took his camera. Called the local sheriff, not because we trusted them, but because we'd done enough. Let the law see the predator for once. He was arrested that night. But the scars? Stayed. The next morning, Lena drew a picture of a house with flames around it, and a circle of old women holding hands. In the middle, a girl smiling. Safe. And now, my friends, before we close the final chapter of this journey, I ask you, where are you watching from? Have you, or someone you love, ever faced betrayal like this? What would you have done to a man like Elias? Like, comment, and subscribe to Whispers and Wills. Because these stories are not fiction for too many of us. They are memory. Now, let's end this. I stood at the mirror. 73 years old. Skin like paper. Back bent from decades of bending too far. But tonight I was tall. Unshaken. Whole. The house was quiet now. Elias was gone. The press had moved on from our little sanctuary of killer grannies and vigilante justice. But there was one more thing I needed to do. And I'd been waiting years for it. The cellar. Nobody went down there but me. Not since Michael died. But I unlocked it tonight. Not to hide, but to remember. I lit a single candle. Set it on the shelf. And there, hanging on the beam, still stained from 20 years ago, was the dress I wore the night Michael beat me until my ribs cracked. The same night Cassandra said she heard a loud bang and thought a car backfired. She didn't open the door. She didn't come down. She just turned up the volume on her TV. Let me bleed alone. She knocked softly on the wood above. Can I come down? I didn't answer. She came anyway. Cassandra stood there, silent, staring at the dress. Her eyes went wide. I didn't know it was this bad. You didn't want to know, I whispered. I was scared. So was I. But I stayed. For him. For you. For the lie I told the court to save him. I turned. You let me rot. You stayed married to a man who used me as a mop. Tears welled in her eyes. I thought if I ignored it, it would go away. I thought maybe you deserved it. That stopped me cold. Deserved it. She shook her head, crying now. That's what he said. That you'd provoked him. That you were sick. Delusional. I looked at her. Really looked. She wasn't the girl who ran. She wasn't the wife who stayed silent. She was the mother who brought a bruised child to me with shaking hands, no money, and a backpack. I can't undo what I let happen, she said. But please. I'm here now. Let me make it right. Please. Don't shut me out again. I walked past her. Up the stairs. Into the kitchen. Opened the cabinet. And took out a jar. Of salt. Give me your hand, I said. She hesitated. I'm not going to hurt you, I added. She reached forward. I poured a handful of salt into her palm. Do you know what this is? I asked. She nodded. Pain. No. Memory. I pointed to my arms. I was beaten. Lashed. Wounds still open. And she, your mother-in-law self, the woman I had to live under, poured salt into my skin. Over and over. With her heels still stained with my blood. Cassandra gasped. You told me, she yelled. Let the pain teach you obedience. I met her eyes. You didn't lift the salt, but you watched it happen. She fell to her knees. I was a coward. No, I said, you were complicit. She sobbed. So punish me. And that's when I knew this was the moment. Not when Michael died. Not when Elias was taken. Not when the judge ruled in our favor. Now, because I held the power, not to punish her, but to forgive. And forgiveness is the final sword. I took the salt from her hand, poured it into the sink. I punish you by making you live, I said. Every day. Here. With us. You cook, you clean, you protect Lena. And when she asks who I am, you tell her, the woman who saved us. Not because she had to, but because she could. She nodded, broken, humbled. I hugged her. For the first time in 20 years. Now Lena calls me Grandma. She brings me wildflowers from the garden and sings songs about strong women who protect the weak. Iron House is growing. We take in 5 new women this month. Each with stories darker than mine. Each with hands that still tremble when doors slam too loud. But they sleep well now. Because they know this house isn't just safe. It's sacred. So to all of you watching. Have you ever been hurt by someone you raised, protected, or loved? Have you forgiven too soon, or not at all? Have you found your voice, or are you still whispering in your own house? Tell me in the comments. Where are you watching from? And if you're over 70, you are not invisible. You are not broken. You are fire. Like, comment, subscribe. Because here at Whispers and Wills, we don't just tell stories. We reclaim them.